Hello there, welcome back to Mastering the Young Band. Today's episode, I wanted to talk about beginners and getting fluency with their first 5 notes and really their first octave of notes, as well as positions and fingerings. I've tried all kinds of different strategies with my beginners of helping them to learn how to read the staff and how to understand how that translates to their fingerings. I've tried years where, we've done the good old every good boy does fine and face, and that one always works well for students. The issue is your clarinets, your tubas that go below the staff, you immediately have to then teach them ledger lines, and if they don't have a context for understanding how to go line space with their musical alphabet, it doesn't make sense to them. There's no acrostic to help the tubas go down to the third space below the bass clef staff. I've done years where I've done only musical alphabet, where we go, okay, here's E, and we always work our way up. And the good thing about that one is, as I mentioned, clarinets and flutes have a framework, a way of figuring out their note names. Unfortunately, your struggling learners, that one they struggle with, especially going backwards in their alphabet. Your kids that struggle with reading fluency and sometimes math, they're going to struggle going backwards in their alphabet. So what I've started doing more of is actually doing a combination. Starting with kids going, okay, here's how the staff works. We do musical alphabet stuff like Master of the Alphabet. We do especially a lot of alphabet backwards. And I let kids go ahead and use some of those acrostics. Every good boy does fine, great big dogs fight always, just any of those acrostics that they like. But they still have to be able to say their musical alphabet backwards to figure out their note names. So that's my introduction, is I'll go, okay, here's the staff. Yes, you can use these acrostics to help you, but we also have to be able to say our alphabet backwards, and we'll do some staff games up on the board. We'll go, okay, here, let's figure out this note here, and I'll put it below the staff, and we'll go, okay, if this is E, let's go backwards and say our alphabet backwards. We'll do that, and we'll work our way down to figure out notes. After they understand that concept, not necessarily mastery, but if they understand that concept of backwards musical alphabet especially, then I start moving them to their flashcards. On my website, mikeperezband.com, I have this resource of flashcards as well as speed note, which I'll get to in a moment. The flashcards I've found are really, really important for kids to be able to study their note names in a really easy format. So what I did is I created these flashcards for the primary beginning band instruments. So for flute, clarinet, trumpet, horn, trombone, tuba, and percussion. And I think I also created a saxophone card in there too. My particular district, we don't start saxophone or double reeds, but I believe those are part of the set as well. So each kid gets these flashcards. One of their homework assignments is to cut these out. As you can notice on my flashcards, I have the description of the note. So you'll notice this is the third line B flat, third line B flat. As you can see here, this is a flute flashcard. So top thumb and then 1 E flat pinky. I do teach them the top thumb fingering right away. And you'll notice there, I also have the name on there. Okay, that way, just in case they lose a card, I have a better chance of getting it back to that kid. What I do is, so the kids take these home, they cut them out, and then they put them, I give them a baggie, they keep them in a baggie in the pencil pouch of their band binder. That's just a great way of having them keep track of everything. They just dump them into that Ziploc bag, put it into their pencil pouch. And then what we do during class time, so they have their cutout flashcards, and a typical thing I do in class, go, okay, you have 2 silent independent minutes to study your flashcards. Okay, here we go, 2 minutes. And the kids are just going through their flashcards on their own. Then I'll have them pair up with a partner and go ahead and quiz each other. And they go through the stack, then they switch. So I usually spend about 5-6 minutes, pretty much every class period for the first few weeks of beginning band, just to make sure they're getting lots of time working on these. Your kids that struggle with reading and math, these are the most important tool for them to start just memorizing. They just have to memorize at first, and then as they start getting it, you can help them with the framework of figuring out any other notes. So flashcards are a really important part for your beginners, just at that first stage of understanding their note names as well as their fingerings. Just a quick note on the brass flashcards, you'll notice here, I do use positions with my brass instead of fingerings. If you've never used positions for your brass before, I do have a video that I'll be filming on the importance of teaching your brass players positions instead of fingerings. So you'll notice on my flashcards, I have the position, first position, no valves. You can see that this is a trombone euphonium one, but I do put both on there for those of you that haven't taught positions before, should you purchase this. The second step of gaining fluency and understanding note names and fingerings positions is speed note. This is such a simple little document to use with your beginners. And what I do is I set my metronome to 72. I do have a video on this, by the way, that I've done entirely on speed note, but I'll just go over this really quickly. So I set it at tempo 72 after we've done flashcards for several weeks. And then the kids will say the note names in whole notes. C, E, C. And I don't go through the whole page. You'll notice there's 50 in here. I normally go through the first 3 lines, which is 18 notes. We'll say them that way. Then we'll stop and they'll say, okay, now let's say a note every 2 beats or half notes. C, E, C, G. Some days I'll do a competition called Mess Up, Drop Out. Everybody stands up and then we go through the whole sheet. And when students mess up, they need to sit down and we'll see who's left. We cheer for the students that make it all the way through. And then we'll even do, for a bonus round for the kids still standing, we'll go C, E, C, G, C, E, stop. Next line and ready, go. G, C, D, and so on. And then we'll see who's left standing. And of course, at the beginning of the year, the students are like, oh my gosh, they can say that one note per beat. They're amazed. And then I explain to them, hey, when we get into our book, that's how fast the notes move. And they're like, ah. So speed note you can use for note names. And then I also do positions with the brass. So the brass will go, for instance, if this is trumpet, first, fourth, first, first, where they say positions. And for those of you that have never used brass positions before, you can see, especially if you have a brass class, if everybody's saying positions, how much more clear it is, rather than your trumpets going open, 1 and 2, and then your tubas are saying something, and your your trombones are saying something. If they can all say the same, it just sure helps things. So those are the 2 resources I use for beginners. I use the speed note and the flashcards pretty much for the first 8 weeks. In the second quarter of band, we'll move on to a speed note level 2, which is more octave related. And then after that, the students have pretty good understanding of their note names. And then we just note name things in their exercises and in their book. And then I don't use speed note any longer. I hope you find that helpful. Again, both the speed note sheets as well as the flashcards are part of a package deal on my website, MikePerezBand.com. Check them out.